The chamber fell silent. Not 900 alien species watched from their seats as the massive doors opened. The Galactic Council headquarters, a station the size of a small moon, had hosted trillions of diplomatic meetings over its 50,000-year history. Representatives from across the known universe had stood in that chamber. Empires had risen and fallen based on decisions made within these walls, but no one had ever seen anything like this. Ambassador David Cole walked alone across the obsidian floor. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him, the doors sealed shut with a sound like thunder. Above him, thousands of alien delegates sat in floating platforms that rose toward a ceiling lost in darkness. Beings of light, creatures of living metal, hive minds that spoke as one, ancient intelligences that remembered when the first stars were born, and every single one of them was staring at the human with something between shock and fury. The high speaker, a crystalline entity that had ruled this chamber for 3,000 years, pulsed with angry red light. Its voice echoed through every translator in the vast space. Ambassador Cole, you stand before the Galactic Council accused of the greatest violation of interstellar law in recorded history. David stopped at the center of the chamber. A single spotlight illuminated him from above. He looked small against the enormity of the space. One human, alone, facing the judgment of the entire galaxy. You were contacted by the Mira Collective 8 months ago, the High Speaker continued. They sent a distress signal requesting humanitarian aid. Their agricultural worlds were failing. Their people were starving. They asked for food. They asked for medical supplies. They asked for farming equipment. The speaker's form blazed brighter. Instead, Ambassador, you brought a war fleet. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several delegations began transmitting emergency messages to their homeworlds. The Mira situation had been a minor humanitarian crisis. Now it threatened to become something much worse. 6,000 human warships now orbit the Mira system, the speaker said. Weapons platforms have been deployed around every inhabited world. Defensive stations guard every approach vector. You have transformed a relief mission into a military occupation. David remained perfectly still. His expression revealed nothing. Furthermore, the speaker continued, your fleet has positioned itself directly between Mira space and the Dominion border. The Dominion has ruled that region for 40,000 years. They have already declared your presence an act of war. They are mobilizing their Armada as we speak. The chamber erupted. The Dominion was one of the 3 founding species of the Galactic Council. They commanded over 100,000 warships. They had destroyed entire civilizations for lesser insults. You have endangered not only your own species, the speaker's voice cut through the chaos, but every being in this quadrant. The Dominion will not stop with Earth. They will punish any species that fails to condemn your actions. Billions will die because of your recklessness. The noise faded as everyone waited for the human to respond. David Cole looked up at the assembled representatives. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but clear. May I ask a question, High Speaker? The crystalline being flickered with impatience. You may. Why was the Mira Collective starving? Silence. Their agricultural worlds were among the most productive in the quadrant, David continued. They exported food to dozens of systems. They had never experienced famine in their entire history as a spacefaring species. So what changed? No one answered. I will tell you what changed, David said. 3 years ago, the Dominion claimed that 7 Mira colony worlds fell within their ancestral territory. The Mira disputed this claim. They brought evidence to this council, maps, historical records, treaty documents proving their legitimate ownership. He paused, letting the words sink in. This council ruled that the matter required further study. A committee was formed. Investigations were launched. And while you investigated, the Dominion imposed a blockade. No ships in or out of Mira space. No trade. No aid. No contact with the outside galaxy. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. For 3 years, the Mira starved while this council debated jurisdiction. 2 billion beings died waiting for you to reach a conclusion. 2 billion. And the Dominion fleet sat at their borders and watched them die. The situation was complex, the speaker said, his voice less certain now. The Dominion has legitimate concerns about regional security. We could not simply dismiss their claims without proper review. Proper review, David repeated. Yes, I have read your proper review. I have read every report, every committee finding, every diplomatic communication for the past 3 years. And I found something interesting. He reached into his jacket and produced a small device. A holographic display materialized in the air before him. The committee assigned to study the Mira dispute met 147 times. They produced over 2,000 pages of analysis. But they never once voted on a resolution. Why? The display showed a document covered in official seals. Because every time they prepared to vote, someone raised a new objection, a new concern, a new question that required additional study, and every single objection came from the same source. The document expanded. Names appeared, dates, authorization codes. The Dominion has been manipulating this council for 3 years. They delayed every vote. They blocked every resolution. They let 2 billion people die while pretending to negotiate in good faith. And this council let them. The chamber went silent again. But this time, the silence had a different quality. Doubt, shame, the beginning of something that might become anger. So yes, David said, I brought a war fleet. Because the Mira asked for help, and no one else was coming. Because 2 billion are already dead, and 50 billion more will follow if the blockade continues. Because this council had 3 years to do the right thing, and instead you formed committees. He looked directly at the High Speaker. Humanity did not come to this galaxy to watch people die while politicians debate. The Mira will receive their supplies. The blockade will end. And if the Dominion objects, they are welcome to discuss the matter with our fleet. The speaker's form pulsed with complicated colors. You are threatening war with the Dominion? They will destroy you. They command more ships than your entire species possesses. David smiled. It was not a friendly expression. High Speaker, I am not threatening anything. I am informing this council of facts. Fact 1. The Mira blockade ends today. Fact 2. Any ship that interferes with humanitarian operations will be destroyed. Fact 3. Earth is no longer asking for permission. He turned to address the entire chamber. For 2 centuries, humanity has watched how this galaxy operates. We have seen the powerful prey upon the weak. We have seen justice delayed until it becomes meaningless. We have seen good people die while those who could save them debate procedure. His voice hardened. We are done watching. Any species that cannot defend itself may request Earth's protection. Any legitimate government facing illegal aggression may call upon our fleet. This is not a threat. This is a promise. And it begins today with the Mira. The High Speaker's form dimmed to a troubled blue. You cannot simply declare yourself protector of the galaxy. You are one species among thousands. Then stop us, David said simply. Convince the Dominion to withdraw their blockade peacefully, and our fleet will return home. Find another way to save the Mira, and we will stand down. Give us any reason to believe that this council can protect the innocent, and we will defer to your authority. He spread his hands. But until then, the Mira are under Earth's protection. And tomorrow, when this day is recorded in the histories of the galaxy, let it be remembered that humanity acted while others debated. He bowed slightly. a gesture of formal respect that somehow felt more like a challenge. The Council has my statement. I await your response. But I should mention one final fact. He glanced at the chronometer on his wrist. In approximately 4 hours, the Dominion's forward fleet will attempt to break through our defensive perimeter at Mira. They have dispatched 3,000 ships. We have 800 in that sector. Gasps echoed through the chamber. I expect you will want to watch what happens next. It may affect your deliberations. David Cole turned and walked toward the sealed doors. They opened at his approach, revealing the corridor beyond. Ambassador, the speaker called out. You cannot leave. This session is not concluded. David paused at the threshold. High Speaker, with respect, this session concluded 3 years ago when you chose to let the Mira die. Everything since then has just been consequences. He stepped through the doors, and across the galaxy, 50 billion Mira looked up at skies that had been dark with Dominion warships for 3 long years. Now, between those warships and their worlds, human vessels held the line dot in 4 hours. The galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The Council members did not know it yet, but nothing would ever be the same again. The tactical display aboard the human dreadnought Ironclad showed 3,000 Dominion warships advancing in perfect formation. Commander Elena Voss stood at the center of the bridge, watching the enemy fleet grow closer with each passing second. She had 800 ships against their 3,000. The mathematics were simple. According to every military doctrine in the galaxy, she was about to die. Commander, her tactical officer reported, Dominion fleet will enter weapons range in 12 minutes. They are charging their primary batteries. Elena nodded. Fleet status? All vessels report ready. Defensive formation holding steady. On the main screen, the Dominion ships looked like a wall of metal stretching across the stars. Each one was twice the size of its human counterpart. Their weapons had been tested in 1,000 battles over 40,000 years. They had never lost a war. Behind Elena's fleet, 12 Mira agricultural worlds waited. 50 billion people who had survived 3 years of starvation were finally receiving supplies from human transports. Medical teams were treating plague victims. Food was being distributed to refugee camps. If she failed here, all of that would end. The Dominion would restore their blockade. The Mira would continue dying. And Earth would learn that good intentions meant nothing against superior firepower. Open a channel to the Dominion flagship, Elena ordered. The communication officer worked his console. Channel open, Commander. A holographic image materialized on the bridge. The Dominion commander was a massive creature covered in armored scales, with 6 arms and eyes that burned like molten gold. His species had conquered this region of space when humans were still learning to make fire. Human, the Dominion commander rumbled. I am Fleet Master Goroth. You have trespassed in Dominion territory and interfered with our lawful operations. You have one opportunity to withdraw. Elena kept her voice calm. Fleet Master, we are conducting humanitarian operations in neutral space. The Mira Collective has requested our assistance. We intend to provide it. Goroth made a sound that might have been laughter. Neutral space? The Mira worlds belong to the Dominion. This has been established for 3 years. Your presence here is an act of war. The Council has not ruled on that claim. The Council is irrelevant. The Dominion does not require permission from lesser species to enforce our rights. Goroth leaned forward. I have destroyed 47 enemy fleets in my career. Your ships are primitive. Your tactics are copied from species we conquered millennia ago. You cannot win this battle. Elena smiled slightly. You might be right, but we are not leaving. Then you will die. And after I destroy your fleet, I will proceed to your homeworld. I will reduce your cities to ash. I will sell your survivors as slaves. Your species will serve as an example to anyone else who dares to challenge Dominion authority. The hologram flickered as Gorath terminated the connection. Elena turned to her crew. Every face on the bridge showed fear, but also determination. They had volunteered for this mission. They knew the odds. All hands, Elena spoke into the ship-wide communicator. This is Commander Voss. In a few minutes, we will engage a superior force. Many of us will not survive, but 50 billion people are depending on us. Not our government, not our military. Us, the people on this ship right now. She paused. I will not lie to you. What we are about to do is dangerous. But we did not come here to be safe. We came here because someone needed help, and no one else would answer. Whatever happens today, we can be proud of that. She closed the channel and returned her attention to the tactical display. The Dominion fleet was 8 minutes away. Commander, the tactical officer said quietly, there is something you should see. He transferred data to the main screen. Elena's eyes widened. The display showed not just the Dominion fleet, but the entire sector. And everywhere she looked, there was movement. Ship signatures emerging from hyperspace. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. What is that? She demanded. Reinforcements, Commander. From Earth. Elena stared at the screen. Ship after ship appeared, materializing from hidden positions throughout the system. Battleships, carriers, destroyers, cruisers, vessels. She did not even recognize. I am receiving a transmission from the lead ship, the communications officer said. It is Admiral Marcus Webb. A new hologram appeared. Admiral Webb was an older man with a face lined by decades of service. He was smiling. Commander Voss, apologies for the delay. We had to make sure the Dominion committed their fleet before revealing our position. Elena found her voice. Admiral, I thought we only had 800 ships in this sector. That was the official count. Yes. The actual number is somewhat higher. The tactical display updated. Final count. 12,000 human warships now surrounded the Dominion formation. Fleet Master Gorath, Admiral Webb broadcast on all frequencies. You are outnumbered 4-1. Your fleet is surrounded. I am offering you one opportunity to withdraw. The response came quickly. Gorath's voice was filled with rage. Treachery. This is a trap. The Council will hear of this. The Council already knows, Webb replied calmly. They are watching this engagement live from the headquarters station, as is most of the galaxy, I believe. So let me be clear about what happens next. The human fleet began to move. Ships that had seemed positioned randomly revealed themselves as parts of a carefully planned formation. Every avenue of retreat was blocked. Every weapon's angle was covered. You can surrender and return to Dominion space, Webb continued. Your crews will be treated according to galactic law. Your ships will be impounded or returned after the Mira situation is resolved. Surrender? Gorath snarled. The Dominion has never surrendered. Then you can fight. But understand this, we have weapons you have never seen. Defenses you cannot penetrate. Tactics you cannot predict. 40,000 years of Dominion military supremacy ends today, one way or another. The channel went silent. Elena watched the Dominion formation on her screen. She could see the enemy ships adjusting, trying to find a weakness in the human encirclement. There was none. They are powering weapons, her tactical officer reported. It looks like they intend to break through. Admiral Webb's voice came through again, this time privately to the human fleet. All vessels weapons free. Minimize casualties where possible. We are not here for slaughter. We are here to make a point. The Dominion attacked. 3,000 warships surged forward, concentrating their fire on what appeared to be the weakest section of the human line. It was standard Dominion doctrine, a tactic that had broken enemy formations for millennia, but the human ships did not break. Instead, they did something impossible. One moment, the vessels were in one position. The next moment, they were somewhere else entirely. No hyperspace jump. No visible movement. They simply stopped being in one place and started being in another. Dominion weapons. Fire tore through empty space where human ships had been seconds before. The carefully aimed volleys struck nothing. Then the human counterattack began. Elena watched in awe as weapons she had never seen activated. Beams of light that bent around obstacles. Missiles that predicted where enemy ships would dodge and arrived there first. Shield frequencies that changed faster than Dominion targeting computers could track dot in 3 minutes. 400 Dominion ships became expanding clouds of debris. "Cease fire," Admiral Webb ordered. The human fleet stopped shooting. The remaining Dominion vessels drifted in confusion, their formations shattered, their confidence broken. "Fleet Master Gorath," Webb broadcast again, "you have lost 400 ships in 3 minutes. We have lost none. I am offering you surrender terms once more. This is not a negotiation." The silence stretched for a long moment. Then, one by one, the Dominion warships began powering down their weapons. Gorath's voice came through, filled with bitter defeat. "We surrender." On the Council Station, 900 species watched in stunned silence. The Dominion had been humiliated without losing a single human life. The implications were staggering. Ambassador David Cole stood in the observation gallery, watching the broadcast alongside representatives from dozens of worlds. Many of them were looking at him now, their expressions a mixture of fear, respect, and calculation. "How?" The Mira delegate asked quietly. "How did you hide so many ships? How do you have technology like that? You are barely 2 centuries old as a spacefaring species." David turned to face her. "We are fast learners. But why keep this secret? You could have revealed your strength years ago. You could have claimed a seat on the council. You could have challenged the founding species directly." "We did not want to challenge anyone," David said. "We wanted to live peacefully and let the galaxy sort itself out. But then we saw the Mira situation. We saw 2 billion people die while the powerful debated. We saw this council do nothing." He looked back at the screen, where human ships were now escorting Dominion prisoners to holding areas. "So we decided that if no one else would protect the innocent, we would. Not for power. Not for territory. Not for glory. Just because it was the right thing to do." The Myra delegates stared at him. "And the Dominion? They will not forget this humiliation. They will rebuild. They will seek revenge." David nodded. "Probably. And when they do, we will be ready. You cannot protect everyone. No, but we can try." Back on the ironclad, Commander Voss stood on her bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of what had been the most feared fleet in the quadrant. Her crew was celebrating, but she felt only relief. They had won. The Myra would live. Earth had announced itself to the galaxy in a way that could never be taken back. But she knew this was only the beginning. The Dominion would seek allies. They would study human tactics. They woo. LD developed countermeasures. The other founding species would feel threatened by this shift in power. War was coming. Real war, not a brief engagement against an overconfident enemy. The galaxy was about to change, and humanity stood at the center of that change. Elena looked at the stars stretching endlessly beyond her viewport. "What have we started?" She whispered dot somewhere. In the darkness between the stars? The answer was already taking shape. 3 weeks had passed since the battle at Myra. The galaxy had not stopped talking about it. Ambassador David Cole sat in a small room aboard the council station. facing the 12 most powerful beings in the known universe. They were the Inner Circle, the true rulers of galactic civilization, species so old that they had watched stars form and die, intelligences so vast that they operated on timescales humans could barely comprehend. And for the first time in millennia, they were afraid. "We must speak honestly," said the Archon, a being of pure energy who served as the unofficial leader of the Inner Circle. "The situation has changed. What we witnessed at Myra was not a simple military victory. It was a demonstration of capabilities we did not know existed." The room hummed with agreement from the other entities. "Humanity was supposed to be a minor species," the Archon continued. "Your development was monitored. Your technology was assessed. According to our projections, you should not have achieved faster than light travel for another 500 years. Instead, you have weapons that surpass anything the Dominion possesses. You have ships that move in ways our science says are impossible." David said nothing. He waited. "We are not your enemies," the Archon said, its voice softening. "The Inner Circle has maintained galactic stability for 11 million years. We have prevented wars that would have destroyed entire sectors. We have guided the development of countless species toward peace and prosperity." "Mira would disagree with that assessment," David replied. Quietly, silence fell over the room. "The Mira situation was unfortunate," the Archon admitted. "We underestimated the Dominion's willingness to use starvation as a weapon. But it was a contained crisis. 2 billion deaths, while tragic, are insignificant compared to the wars that would erupt if our system of order collapses." David leaned forward. "Insignificant. From a galactic perspective, yes. The mathematics of civilization require difficult choices. Some suffering must be accepted to prevent greater suffering. And who decides which suffering is acceptable? You?" The Archon pulsed with complicated patterns of light. "Someone must decide. That is the burden of the powerful. We have experience. We have wisdom. We have guided the galaxy toward stability for longer than your species has existed." David stood and walked to the window. Beyond it, the vastness of space stretched endlessly, filled with billions of stars, trillions of worlds, countless beings living and dying under the order these 12 entities maintained. "I want to show you something," he said. He activated a small device he had carried into the meeting. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room. "This is Earth's historical database," David explained. "Every war, every genocide, every act of mass cruelty our species has committed against itself. It is not a pleasant record. Images flickered past, battles, famines, death camps, mushroom clouds. For most of our history, we were exactly what you expected," David continued. "Violent, primitive, self-destructive. We nearly ended ourselves a dozen times before we even reached the stars. We have observed this," the Archon said. "It is why your species was not considered a threat." "But something changed," David said. "Slowly, painfully, over generations we learned. We learned that power without conscience leads to destruction. We learned that ignoring suffering, even distant suffering, poisons the soul. We learned that the mathematics of civilization you describe, the calculations that trade lives for stability, lead inevitably to exactly the kind of horror we spent centuries trying to overcome." He turned to face the Inner Circle directly. "So when we reached the stars and saw the same patterns repeating, the strong exploiting the weak, the powerful ignoring the suffering of the helpless, councils debating while people died, we made a choice." "What choice?" the Archon asked. "To be better. Not because we are better, but because we know what happens when you are not. We have lived through the consequences of that mathematics you described. We have seen what civilizations become when they accept that some suffering is insignificant. David's voice hardened. The answer is, they become you. They become beings who sit in rooms like this and calculate how many deaths are acceptable to maintain their power. They become the Dominion, willing to starve billions for territorial claims. They become everything we spent centuries learning to reject. The Inner Circle members shifted uncomfortably. No one had spoken to them like this in millennia. You misunderstand our purpose, the Archon said finally. We do not maintain order for power. We maintain order because the alternative is chaos. Species rise and fall. Empires clash and burn. Without guidance, the galaxy would tear itself apart. Maybe, David acknowledged. But there is a difference between guidance and control. Between preventing genuine threats and allowing atrocities, because stopping them would be inconvenient. The Dominion blockade was not a complicated situation. It was a powerful species deliberately starving a weaker one while you watched. If we had intervened directly, the Dominion would have withdrawn from the Council. Their alliance with the other founding species would have collapsed. Centuries of diplomatic work would have been undone. So you did nothing. We sought a solution that preserved the existing structure. And 2 billion people died while you sought. David sat back down, facing the Archon directly. Here is what I believe. I believe that over 11 million years, you have forgotten why you started maintaining order in the first place. I believe your system has become more important to you than the beings it was supposed to protect. I believe you have convinced yourselves that stability is the same as justice, and it is not. He placed his hands flat on the table. Earth did not come here to destroy your order. We came here to fix it. The Mira will receive the help they need. The Dominion will face consequences for what they did. And from now on, when someone is suffering, when a species is being oppressed, when people are dying because the powerful will not act, humanity will answer. You cannot protect everyone, the Archon said. The galaxy is too large. The problems are too complex. Then we will do what we can. We will answer the calls we can hear. We will help the people we can reach. And we will hope that our example inspires others to do the same. The Archon studied the human for a long moment. And if we oppose you? If the Inner Circle decides that humanity has become a destabilizing influence that must be contained? David smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Then you will discover why the Dominion surrendered after 3 minutes. You will learn that the fleet you saw at Mira was less than 1/3 of our total force. You will understand that we have been preparing for this conversation for 50 years, since the first time we saw how your order truly works. He stood. But I hope it does not come to that. I hope that somewhere, buried under 11 million years of calculations and compromises, you still remember what it felt like to care about individual lives. I hope you can become allies instead of obstacles. David walked toward the door. The choice is yours. But understand this. Humanity is no longer asking permission. The Mira situation proved that your permission was never worth waiting for. He stopped at the threshold and looked back. Oh, and one more thing. We have been monitoring your communications since we arrived in this sector. We know about the contingency plan. The hidden fleet you maintain for exactly this kind of situation. The weapons designed to sterilize entire worlds. The Archon's form flickered with alarm. If you activate those weapons, David said quietly, if you attempt to destroy us the way you have destroyed other rising powers throughout history, you will fail. And then there will be no one left to maintain your precious order. He left the room. Behind him, the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in silence. For the first time in their ancient existence, they faced a choice with no clear answer. They could accept humanity's challenge and risk everything they had, built over millions of years, or they could destroy the humans and prove that everything David had said about them was true. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same, and somewhere in the depths of the station, in archives that predated even the inner circle, ancient records began to stir. Records of other species who had risen too fast. Records of interventions that had erased civilizations from existence. Records that suggested the inner circle itself had been shaped by forces even older than they. Remembered, forces that were about to take notice of humanity. The real test was only beginning. The discovery happened on a dying Mira colony world. In a temple that had been sealed for 60,000 years. Dr. Nadia Reyes led the excavation team through corridors carved from living stone. Human scientists and Mara Arca. Geologists worked side by side, their lights cutting through darkness that had existed since before humanity learned to write. The structure predates the Mira civilization, one of the alien researchers explained through a translator. Our ancestors found this place when they first colonized this world. They believed it was sacred. They sealed it and never returned. Why open it now? Nadia asked. Because you saved us. Because secrets are worthless if there is no one left to keep them. Because our elders decided that humanity deserves to know what we have protected. They reached a chamber at the heart of the temple. The walls were covered in symbols that glowed faintly with their own light. The air felt different here, charged with an energy that made Nadia's equipment spark and malfunction. At the center of the room stood a pillar of crystal that pulsed like a living heartbeat. What is this? Nadia whispered. The Mira researcher approached the pillar reverently. A message, left by those who came before. Those who warned us that the galaxy is not what it seems. She touched the crystal. The room exploded with light. Images filled the air. Not holograms, something deeper. Memories burned directly into the minds of everyone present. Nadia gasped as knowledge that was not her own flooded through her. Consciousness. She saw the galaxy as it had been 12 million years ago. Thousands of species reaching toward the stars. Civilizations rising with hope and ambition. Cultures creating art and science and philosophy that would have taken humanity millennia to match. And then she saw them disappear. One by one, the brightest species vanished. Not conquered, not destroyed in war, simply erased as if they had never existed. Their worlds remained, but empty. Their cities stood, but silent. Their people were gone without trace or explanation. The survivors called it the silence, that no one knew what caused it. No one knew how to prevent it. The only pattern the survivors could find was this. The species that disappeared were always the ones who were rising fastest, developing most quickly, challenging the existing order most directly. The inner circle formed in the aftermath. 11 million years ago, the most powerful remaining species came together and made a decision. They would maintain stability. They would prevent rapid advancement. They would guide galactic civilization toward a state of permanent equilibrium, never rising high enough to attract whatever had caused the silence. They called it protection. They called it guidance. But Nadia saw the truth of it now. It was a cage. The entire galactic order was designed to keep every species contained, limited, incapable of becoming a threat to whatever still lurked in the darkness between the stars. The Dominion's aggression against the Mira was not random. It was engineered. The inner circle had quietly encouraged the conflict, knowing it would devastate one of the few species that remembered the truth about the silence. And humanity. Nadia saw records of other species who had risen like humanity. Species who developed too fast, advanced too quickly, challenged the inner circle too directly. Every single one had been destroyed, some through engineered conflicts, some through manufactured plagues, some through direct intervention by weapons that had been hidden for millennia. Earth was next on the list. We have to warn them, Nadia said when the vision finally faded. We have to tell Ambassador Cole. We have to. She stopped. The mirror researcher was looking at her with ancient, sorrowful eyes. "There is more," the alien said. "The message contains a warning. Not just about the inner circle. About something else. Something the inner circle itself fears." The crystal pulsed again. New images appeared. Nadia saw a presence at the edge of the galaxy. Not a species. Not a civilization. Something older. Something that had existed before the first stars formed. Something that had seeded life across the cosmos and then waited, watching, judging when civilizations rose too high, when they threatened to discover certain truths about the nature of reality, when they came too close to understanding what they truly were. The presence acted. The silence was not a mystery. It was a harvest. And the presence was watching humanity right now. Meanwhile, on the council station, Ambassador David Cole received the transmission from Dr. Reyes with growing horror. "How certain is this information?" he demanded. "The Mira have protected this knowledge for 60,000 years," Nadia replied through the communication screen. "They have no reason to deceive us." "And David, there is more. The inner circle knows. They have known for 11 million years. Everything they do, the stability they maintain, the civilizations they crush, it is all to avoid attracting attention. To keep the entire galaxy small and quiet enough that the presence ignores us." David sat in silence for a moment. "Then we are in more danger than we realized." "Yes, and David, the message contained specific warnings about species like us. Species who rise quickly. Species who challenge the existing order. Species who draw attention. Like we just did at Myra." "Exactly like we just did at Myra." David closed the communication and stared at the stars beyond his window. Humanity had come to this galaxy thinking the greatest threat was ancient bureaucracy and alien empires. They had prepared for political opposition, military conflict, diplomatic isolation. They had not prepared for this. He activated his personal communicator. "Get me Admiral Webb. Highest priority." When the Admiral's face appeared on screen, David did not waste time with pleasantries. "We have a problem. A big one. The inner circle is about to become the least of our concerns." He transmitted the data from the Mira Temple. Admiral Webb's expression grew grimmer with each revelation. When the transmission ended, he sat in silence for nearly a minute. "So the galaxy is a cage," Webb finally said. "And something built the cage to keep the livestock manageable until slaughter time. That is one way to describe it." "Yes, and we just made ourselves the biggest, loudest animal in the pen." David nodded. "The question is what we do about it." Webb's eyes hardened. "The same thing we always do. We fight. Against something that has been harvesting civilizations for millions of years. Something that operates on a scale we cannot even comprehend. We fought the Dominion when everyone said it was impossible. We faced down the inner circle when they controlled the entire galactic order. We have been preparing for threats we could not imagine since we first reached the stars." Webb leaned forward. "This is bigger than anything we anticipated. But it does not change who we are. And who are we? We are the species that does not give up. We are the species that looks at impossible odds and decides to try anyway. We are the species that would rather die fighting than live on our knees." Webb smiled grimly. "If something wants to harvest humanity, it is welcome to try. But it should know that we are not going quietly. And maybe, just maybe, we are exactly what the galaxy needs to break this cycle." David felt something shift in his chest. Not hope, exactly. Something fiercer. Something that burned. "What do you need?" he asked. "Time, information, and allies. If the inner circle has been keeping the galaxy divided for 11 million years, it is time to unite it. Not under their control. Not under our control. But together, facing whatever comes. The species we have been helping. The Mira, the others who have asked for protection. Contact them all. Tell them the truth. Give them the choice. Cower and hope to be overlooked, or stand with humanity and face the darkness. And if the presence comes before we are ready? Webb's smile did not waver. Then we find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets a species too stubborn to accept the impossible. The communication ended. David looked at the stars again. Somewhere out there, beyond the edge of the galaxy, something ancient and terrible was watching. Something that had ended countless civilizations. Something that considered the entire galactic order nothing more than a feeding ground dot, and humanity was about to challenge it. Not because they were certain of victory. Not because they had a guaranteed plan. But because someone had to try. Because giving up was not in their nature. Because they had seen too much. Suffering to simply accept that it was inevitable. The clock was ticking. The harvest was coming. And Earth was preparing to give it a fight it would never forget. It began at the edge of the galaxy. Sensors across 1,000 worlds detected the disturbance simultaneously. A darkness that swallowed stars. A wave of nothing that erased everything it touched. It moved faster than light, faster than thought, faster than fear. The silence had awakened, and it was coming for humanity. On Earth, emergency broadcasts interrupted every screen on the planet. Admiral Webb addressed a species that had known only weeks ago that they were not alone in the universe. Citizens of Earth, citizens of the human colonies. Today we face the greatest threat our species has ever encountered. An ancient force has noticed us. It has destroyed countless civilizations over millions of years. And now it comes for us. He paused, letting the words sink in. I will not lie to you. We do not know if we can win. We do not know if victory is even possible against something this vast. But I can tell you this. We will not surrender. We will not hide. We will face this darkness together, and we will show the galaxy what humanity is made of. Across human space, fleets mobilized. Weapons platforms activated. Defense networks came online. Every ship capable of fighting moved into position. But humanity was not alone. The Mira, whose people had been saved from starvation, sent every vessel they possessed. The Collective, a species of telepaths who had watched their world destroyed by inner circle manipulation centuries ago, offered their mental networks for communication. A dozen other species who had suffered under galactic order chose to stand with the humans rather than wait for the silence to consume them. 2. Even more shocking were the defectors from the inner circle itself. 3. Of the 12 ancient species broke away from their colleagues. Beings who had maintained the cage for 11 million years looked at what was coming and decided they would rather fight and continue living in fear. They brought knowledge, technology, secrets that had been hidden since before the Myra were born. The presence is not invincible, one of the defectors explained to Ambassador Cole. It has weaknesses. It has patterns. We have studied it for longer than your species has existed. Then why have you never fought back? Because we were afraid. Because every species that tried was erased. Because we convinced ourselves that maintaining the cage was the only way to survive. The ancient being's form flickered with something that might have been shame. But you have shown us another way. You have reminded us what it means to act rather than merely endure. David nodded grimly. Then tell us how to fight. Tell us everything. The battle plan came together in hours. It was desperate, improbable, and relied on technology that had never been tested. But it was a plan. At its heart was a simple truth the defectors had discovered. The presence could be heard. Not easily. Not without cost. But the silence was not a god. It was a force of nature, and forces of nature could be redirected, could be channeled, could even, under the right circumstances, be turned against themselves. The key was the fold, drive-human technology that allowed ships to move instantly from one point to another was not just a military advantage. It was a fundamental manipulation of space-time itself. And the presence, whatever it was, existed within space-time. It followed rules. It had limitations. If those rules could be disrupted, even briefly, the presence could be destabilized. We need to create a cascading fold collapse at the point where the silence enters normal space. Dr. Reyes explained to the assembled fleet commanders. Every ship with a fold drive fires simultaneously, targeting the same coordinates. The overlapping fields will tear a hole in reality itself. What happens then? Commander Voss asked. We do not know. Maybe we destroy it. Maybe we trap it. Maybe we just make it angry. And if it does not work? Nadia met the commander's eyes. Then we die fighting instead of waiting to be erased. Same as we planned. The silence arrived at the galactic border 3 days later. Every sensor in known space recorded its approach. A wave of absolute darkness that consumed stars, planets, space itself. Ships that moved too slowly simply ceased to exist. Probes sent to investigate transmitted nothing but screaming static before going silent. Behind the wave, there was nothing. Not empty space. Not vacuum. Nothing. As if reality itself had been unwritten. The combined fleet met it at the Mira system, where everything had begun. 40,000 human ships. 10,000 allied vessels. 3 ancient war fleets from the defecting inner Circle species, against something that had erased civilizations for millions of years. Ambassador David Cole stood on the bridge of Admiral Webb's flagship, watching the darkness approach. Around him, beings from a dozen species worked side by side, united for the first time in galactic history by common purpose. The silence will reach weapons range in 4 minutes, the tactical officer reported. Webb turned to the communication console. All ships? This is Admiral Webb. What we do today will be remembered forever, win or lose. The galaxy is watching. The future is watching. And whatever happens, they will know that when the darkness came, humanity and its allies stood together and fought. He took a breath. Prepare for synchronized fold activation on my mark. David watched the wave of nothing grow closer. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a perfect darkness that promised an end to all struggle, all suffering, all existence. Part of him understood why species had chosen to hide rather than face it. But a larger part remembered the Mira, remembered the 2 billion who had died while the galaxy debated, remembered why humanity had chosen to act when no one else would. They had not come this far to give up now. All ships report ready, the tactical officer said. Fold drives charged and synchronized. Engineering added. All personnel report final. Positions. Webb nodded. Mark. The universe tore itself apart. 60,000 ships activated their fold drives simultaneously, all targeting the same point in space where the silence entered reality. The resulting cascade was beyond anything science had predicted. Space twisted, time fractured. Energy in quantities that should have been impossible flooded through dimensions that had no names. Silence screamed. It was not a sound. It was a sensation that tore through every mind in the fleet. An agony that had existed for billions of years, finally given voice. The presence had been alone for so long, hunting, feeding, maintaining its existence in the only way it knew how. And now, for the first time, something was fighting back. The fold cascade expanded, consuming the leading edge of the silence, trapping it in a loop of broken spacetime. The wave of darkness slowed, stopped, began to collapse inward on itself. It is working. Dr. Reyes shouted from her station. The fold fields are containing it. But the celebration was premature. The silence adapted. The darkness shifted, changed, found new paths through the damaged space-time. It could not advance, but it was not destroyed. And it was learning. We cannot maintain this indefinitely, the tactical officer reported. Power reserves are depleting. Ships are burning out their drives. David watched the tactical display. The fold cascade was holding, but just barely. They had hurt the silence. They had proven it could be fought, but they had not won. He thought about everything that had brought them here. The Myra starving while the galaxy debated. The inner circle hiding behind their calculations. Millennia of suffering accepted because it was easier than fighting, and he understood what needed to happen next. "Admiral," he said quietly, "I need a shuttle." Webb looked at him sharply. "What are you planning?" "The fold cascade is not enough. We need something more. Something the silence has never encountered." "Which is?" David smiled. It was the same smile he had worn when facing the council chamber alone. A choice. Before Webb could argue, David was moving. He commandeered a small shuttle, piloted through the chaos of the fold cascade, and flew directly toward the heart of the trapped silence. Communications flooded his console. Commands to return. Pleas to stop. Questions about what he thought he was doing. He ignored them all. At the boundary of the silence, where reality became uncertain, David stopped his shuttle and opened a channel that broadcast on every frequency, through every dimension, into the very fabric of the space the silence occupied. "I know you can hear me," he said. "I know you have been alone for a very long time. I know you feed on civilizations, because it is the only way you know to exist." The darkness pulsed. Something was listening. "We are offering you something different. Not destruction. Not eternal war. A choice. Stop feeding. Stop harvesting. Let the galaxy grow. And in return, we will help you find another way to exist." The silence did not respond with words. It responded with images. Memories had flooded David's mind. He saw the beginning. A consciousness born from the energy of the Big Bang itself, existing before matter, before time, before life. He saw loneliness that had lasted for billions of years. He saw the first discovery of life and the desperate hunger to connect with something, anything that could acknowledge its existence. But the silence did not know how to connect. It only knew how to consume. Every civilization it had taken was an attempt to understand. Every harvest was a failed effort to find companionship. The silence was not evil. It was tragically, terribly alone. David felt tears on his face. Not from fear, from understanding. "You do not have to be alone anymore," he said. "We are here. We see you. And we are not running." The silence hesitated. For the first time in billions of years, it had been offered something other than resistance. For the first time, a species had looked into the darkness and offered not hatred, but hope. Slowly, the wave of nothing began to recede. The fold cascade stabilized. The trapped portion of the silence did not fight. It waited. "You will teach us?" The words appeared directly in David's mind, formless and ancient, and desperately hopeful. "We will try, together, all of us. The galaxy united, helping each other survive. Including you." The darkness shimmered. And then, for the first time since the universe was young, the silence chose not to consume. 1 year later, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The inner circle was dissolved. In its place, a true council where every species had equal voice, where disputes were resolved through cooperation, not manipulation, where no one was left to starve while committees debated. Humanity did not rule this new order. They did not want to, but they protected it. They stood ready to answer any call for help, any plea from the oppressed, any cry from those who had been told their suffering was insignificant. The silence became something new. Not a harvester, but a guardian. Its vast consciousness, guided by representatives from every species, watched for threats from beyond the galaxy. It had found the connection it had always craved. Ambassador David Cole retired to a small house on a Myra colony world. He spent his days helping rebuild what the blockade had destroyed. He had become a symbol, but he preferred to be useful. Commander Voss took over the combined fleet, training crews from dozens of species to work together. She still carried guilt for the lives lost in the war. She probably always would. But she had learned to carry it while still moving forward. And across the galaxy, beings who had once been afraid to hope looked up at stars that no longer harbored ancient threats. They saw human ships patrolling peacefully. They saw former enemies working together. They saw proof that the universe could change. The message that had been left in the Mirror Temple was updated. New words were added, carved in stone that would last for millions of years. When the galaxy faced its greatest darkness, one species chose to act. They did not wait for permission. They did not calculate acceptable losses. They simply saw suffering and decided to help. And in doing so, they changed everything. Remember them. Learn from them. And when your time comes to choose between safety and justice, remember what humanity taught us. The right thing is always worth doing, no matter the cost. David read those words during his last visit to the temple. He smiled. It was a good legacy to leave behind. And somewhere, in the space between stars, the silence watched over its new family, grateful beyond words for the species that had looked into the abyss and offered friendship instead of fear. The galaxy was finally awake. And for the first time in 11 million years, it was truly free.